welcome to Campaigns and Conquests. My name's Magenta. I'm your co-host, and I'm joined tonight by Storm. It's been a while since we've posted a live video, so so we're getting back in the swing of things, and glad that you guys could join us for it. Tonight's topic is going to be all about tabletop history. The very first building blocks of wargaming and role playing, from professional military simulations to imaginative family paracosms, and eventually we'll get to toy soldier campaigns. But we're going to start today with a very special history here. Most people think that RPGs started in the 1970s, but the real story begins 223 years ago with a 6-year-old child prodigy.
That's right. Uh, Thomas Williams Malkin. He was probably the first world creator, and it comes about almost 20 years prior to Kriegspiel, which would be the next plot point as far as I'm concerned.
Is he the first or earliest creator of a paracosm that you could find?
Well, I don't, not really. Just going strictly by the definition. William Blake, who had his first poem ever published, was published in the biography of Thomas Malkin, done by his father, who was a very good friend of William Blake prior to William Blake, becoming very famous for his writings. But Blake himself had a kind of paracosm. He basically, I'm probably not going to do it justice to the literary scholastics, but basically he turned his mind into a world. There's different areas that he had mapped out. There was a city, I forget the name of it, that he used to describe portions of the creativity that went into his poetry and stuff like that. And then there was
So his mind, he had a mind palace. It sounds like you're describing.
Basically,
kind of
right.
Like Sherlock Holmes had one in that series too. He had a mind palace that he kept every
right. Whereas I think Holmes was more of like you say, a palace, as Blake used like cities and counties, which would be like states in England, I guess.
right.
So more of a geographic reference than an abode type of thing that I remember. Holmes
Considering how much of his poetry and imagery revolved around nature, that kind of makes sense that he would use the landscape rather than a palace. But interesting. Right. So he was friends with, you said it was was it Benjamin Malkin? Is what my notes are saying. Is that what?
Yeah, that was his father's name, Benjamin. Mm-hmm.
And then the boy that we're talking about. Tell me a little bit more about him. What was he like?
Well, there's not much to know. Unfortunately, the lad died at 7. Oh, so I have never been able to find a copy of the biography that we're talking about, and I don't know if I just haven't looked in the right places, if it's more common than I think it is or whatever, but I haven't been able to read it. So I don't know that much about him from that perspective, but dearly want to read that book to learn. This much from secondary sources that I know is that he was spent a lot of time in his room. Now, I don't know why they didn't get more specific as to what was wrong with the boy, other than maybe the family just preferred not to publicize the details or whatever. But I'm assuming that he spent most of the time in his room because he was never of great
in good health. He was missing missing out on.
Right.
That's a shame.
So he spent a lot of time in there, but he was incredibly gifted for a kid his age, highly literate, well above his reading level, which was, at that time, I'm sure most kids didn't learn to read, if at all, until they were in their teens, I would suspect. But
Well, that it depend. That was all. If they were born to a wealthy family, they
right,
did
sure,
typically learn early.
class.
Yeah, they would have a
Hmm.
governess or something like that to teach them young.
Hmm. Well, by all accounts, this boy was like very extremely above his, average intellectual
Hmm.
level for his age. So there
So,
was
what
that.
was it? What was it that he accomplished that stood out so much?
Well, like described, this was a 6-year-old doing what Tolkien did when he was a full-grown professional adult at a university. So, give you an idea of the brain power behind this young boy. But he created a world with a functioning uh, economy, political, geopolitical type of things, between countries and all that. He came up with his own language
That
for the
is
world.
just like Tolkien.
Yes, yes, and at time of his demise, he was currently writing a comic, what they referred to as a comic novel, or excuse me, a comic opera for somebody inside the world was writing an opera. So this is what makes Malkin stand out, is that it wasn't just a world that was created via imagination and a story told in it like a lot of these things are. And a paracosm is a place you return to and you live in, you play in. It's not reading about Treasure Island, it's being on Treasure Island playing. What a lot of people um, as kids probably did, where they go out into the woods and play guns or cops and robbers or pirates and whatever. When you were make believe, as a lot of us did with things like Mr. Rogers and all that, that's what we're talking about. um, the game part comes because you're trying to get, you don't want it to be like one of your surreal dreams where you can like backstroke through clouds and stuff, like I get those,
Mhm.
where you can do crazy things, but you're trying to keep whatever is uh, consistent with the world at hand. So anyway, so the big thing. Sorry to ramble. The thing is, with Malkin, he's one of the first to make a. Well, again, not the first, but one of the first documented um, modern takes of a paracosm where they're playing into it to the point where um, this fella had made his own dictionary. He had a very detailed map of the country, which was an island country. Had a complete history of it, the ecology of it, as far as what kind of
Wow,
plants grew and everything. So it
that
wasn't
is
just,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, it's a very, very detailed thing. A lot of people would probably decree that amount of detail in gaming these days, but he had every base covered and he had characters inside the world. But one of the really remarkable things is, in fact, his table of remarkable events, where he had a random events table.
A random events table? Wow, that is ahead of its time.
Mm. So this, a good idea doesn't have a calendar date on it, and this is a great example of it. It's not. Um, how do I put this? There's. It's logical
Right.
to come up with something like that if you want some sort of dynamic world. He didn't want just a narrative that started at A and ended at B. He wanted things to happen where he had to, or his people, his characters had to uh, adjust for it. And even he didn't know what was coming down the pipe. That's very RPG. That's an events table. That's not, I mean, he's a brilliant boy, obviously, with what he did. But I don't know that there's anything extraordinary in coming up with that. It seems somewhat logical to come up with. Um, but I think it's a case where um, there's maybe some mistakes being made at people who look at design as being some sort of linear technological advancement, because this young
Well,
kid,
it
you know,
evolves like fits and starts, just like most things,
right?
Somebody this kid hit on, and who knows where this would have gone. We could have had a world filled with LARPing and role playing games and all kinds of stuff a lot earlier if this child had made it into his teenage and adult years. Who knows what he would have accomplished.
Well, that's true too. But I think what some of this stuff, because he's not the only one. He's one of the earliest for sure that is known. But
Mhm.
but that's the thing. If it wasn't for the father
Mhm.
who wrote the biography, nobody would have known about anything about any of this.
Right.
He was telling the world, published in that book, what his boy had been doing. Nobody knew about it. In
Right.
fact, the only one of the only people that ever talked that they did know about it as it was going on was William Blake.
Which
From
you said he had his own paracosm, but his
he
was
did,
just in his mind. Do you
right.
think that this child might have influenced the development of that? That
I think to
he,
some degree that was true. I think, and William Blake was a very close friend of this family. Social calls were obvious because he had mentioned that he had gone in and was shown what the boy was doing, but that was
mm,
in a private situation. You would have never heard about it. So the reason I bring that up is, who knows how much of that else was going on that you never heard of,
right?
you know? And I think there was
Yeah.
probably a lot of it. Probably a lot of it.
Well, kids didn't have TVs back then. They had to use their imagination. So I'm sure there
Mhm.
was quite a few things that might
Sure.
have been very advanced if adults had even like known about them, maybe.
Right.
But so from him, he developed a part of it, but it didn't stop there. So that was like we're looking at 1802 was the time
That was the year he
that
passed on.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
and,
that's so sad. And then
yeah.
after that, we had another decade just about before we really see more advancements in
Well,
role playing, like the.
one thing,
Mhm.
you're not wrong, but with one exception. The biography for Thomas was printed in 1806,
Okay.
and I think that there's probably I mean, I'm sure it wasn't, how do you say, it was fairly prevalent is what I'm trying to say, as far as something
It
that was being
wasn't on the
read.
best sellers list. Is that what you
I
mean?
don't know if I think it probably was. I think it got around a little bit. I should look that up to be sure instead of just speculate, but I'm pretty sure it was a fairly successful book. Yeah, any one way or the other. I think it's reasonable, although understanding it's not a documented thing, but I think it's reasonable to assume that some people um, were influenced by it as well. Um,
So, do you think that it may have made it all the way over to Prussia, where it was adopted for the next part of our chapter, which is Kriegspiel?
I don't know that that's I don't know. It's possible. I know this much that von Reiswitz, the man who came up with Kriegspiel, got he had been toying around with ideas, but he said that inspiration really struck him when he would observe boys playing with toy soldiers. He said he came across some boys on the side of the road using the dirt shoulder as a means to play a little battle out. And on a lunch walk, he passed by and observed them for a while. And so it, the paracosm definition can you know I don't know that you meet all the criteria of the definition by going out as a child and playing make believe. I had a friend that wanted to uh,
Well, it could
play
be if
Indiana
you're
Jones
always
type of people, you know,
right.
where we pretend we were out in some wilderness, you know, some foreign land looking for from some bauble that, you know, what we would do is his father would go and plant something. And anyway, whatever. I don't want to
So,
get too
like geocaching.
basically,
Um,
but way
yeah.
before any of that stuff, we would just go out there and hunt for it. And we were acting like we were, you know, like adventure-seeking archaeologist or something, kind of a,
Sounds like fun, actually.
right. And I don't know that it's really a paracosm, but in a way, it kind of is because we would revisit the same kind of scenarios and stuff like that. So the point of me bringing that up, other than just being an old nostalgia freak, was that um, I think that this and other paracosms that were around and other uh, literature that may or may not be documentable. Here's the thing: there there was a lot more magazines, and a lot of them came and went. I learned about a magazine from the 19th century that I was like, man, I've read two of these already, and I would have read them cover to cover. They were awesome and very interesting, and um, but there was just a lot of that kind of stuff out there. So my point in bringing it up is that I think that things like Malkin and attempts to mimic, or people who were concurrently doing similar things, it probably brought attention to the situation. And usually where people say, hey, that book made money, let's go write more books like that. I think that's a fairly old concept. You understand what I'm saying? Clearly not.
I'm
But
so sorry about that. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I had to mute it because I was sneezing and I didn't want that to come through on the mic. I forgot I had muted it, but I'm over here
I'm
going,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, you've
Sorry,
gone off the
folks.
deep end. She's locked
Oh,
up. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah,
I
no,
think,
I was involved. You just couldn't hear it. But yeah, I find it fascinating how these things occurred, and how many people, may have been that we just didn't know about because there was no TV. They didn't have the same kind of, literacy wasn't even as prevalent as it is these days. But when people did have it, it looks like they made good use of it and came up
right,
with some very creative things.
right, right.
Um, some of which probably may have never gotten written down, or was written down just and kept in, family libraries, never
Yeah.
published.
Well, there's all
But
sorts of, a great example is the Inklings, is of what I'm trying to, not every,
Inklings,
the
okay,
Inklings.
is
Let me tell
is
you about
that
that
like
real quick.
a
It's adjacent to our topic, so I can just slide it in real quick for folks. The Inklings was a informal group of people that were meeting, um, like J.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis over the period of time. There's a couple of other fairly well-known English authors that are on that list, but the two big names that most people would recognize is Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. And it was just kind of this little club, informal club, where they go and discuss what they're writing with one another and just literary concepts and stuff like that.
hmm,
And um, there was a lot of stuff like that, especially in the UK at the time. Um, that was a means of socializing, was joining these very niche little clubs and going to little TED Talk, because like you say, people didn't have phones or any of that crap. If you wanted
mm-hmm.
something fun to do, you had to leave the house. Well, the only thing at the house was a burning candle and dark room cold. So uh, there was all these little mini societies, and within those kind of clubs, people would write little theses and pass it amongst one another and stuff like that. And it there wasn't some homogenous publishing situation where there's these
Oh,
big companies putting out huge volumes of stuff. It was all much more uh,
right. Everything was
local.
homebrews back then.
Yeah,
There was
right,
no
right,
no other kind of there
right,
was no prepackaged. There
right.
wasn't a store you went to and bought a prepackaged thing. People were writing their own things up and sharing
Yeah,
them. And
so you
of
come
course,
across,
some
yeah,
of that goes on these days too.
sure.
Where somebody has a campaign of their own they're doing,
Hmm.
um, and they're it's not anything that's formal or whatever. So, but so Kriegspiel, do you think it's feasible that these things that it was flourishing underground, and just all the kids were doing it, and that's how Ron
Well,
Reichwitz.
what yeah, what he did, I'm sorry, yeah, I I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, just I was just trying to get back to von Reiswitz because so when we left him, he was seeing the kids playing on the side of the road, and it inspired him to do what exactly?
Uh, well, he had there was a game being played by people, um, which was more of a kind of advanced version of chess, and uh, von Reiswitz had taken that game and tried to modify it into something that what he was trying to do was make something for the military. He and he, that game I bring up because I believe that it did capture the public a little bit, and why they had a little bit more awareness of this, like I think was what you were asking, and that was, I forget the name of it, but anyway, uh, it wasn't really working out, and the epiphany that he had uh, came to was from the observance of these young boys playing with tin soldiers, and so I think that is part of the connection, you know. Um,
So he was in the middle. He was in charge of training officers. They weren't getting it, or they weren't succeeding. So to teach them strategy, he employed the tools the kids were using:
I
miniatures, maps, that kind of thing.
right. I think what he saw was inspiration in the play of toy soldiers. The other system used different things, different playing pieces, and different concepts, and he's kind of switched gears into what is now Kriegspiel. Not completely from watching the kids, but he said that was the kind of the spark, and yeah. So I think that's where he come from. Now, if you look at the Kriegspiel set that he created. 12 of these, a dozen of these things were created when um, the Prussian army adopted it. He brought it to the prince, I believe, at the time,
Hmm.
and ran a game for the prince as a demonstration, and the prince or king or whatever it was. Sorry, I get old and forget the details, but that person was enthralled with it and had 12 made for the military. Now, if you look at one of those, it is a gaming box. If you open up Warhammer 40K, you get some miniatures, you get some rules, you get at least the second edition I'm talking about because I haven't played it in that long, but you get a little instruction booklet with charts in it for who hits who and all that. All of the measuring devices, all the staples of a miniatures table today was that system and the little set that came with it. So you can clearly see how everything evolved from that. And it
That's really
was,
cool.
yeah, it's a great. In fact, I can even bring up a picture if I can, but it's really neat. So I think that imaginative play had a, a more a greater effect on something that had nothing to do with it was used as a tool, or meant to be
Right.
used as a tool to train soldiers, but it really did. I think, as he stated himself, the epiphany, the thing that changed it, that made it work, was taking concepts that young boys were doing, playing with toy soldiers at the time. Yeah,
Kids often invent things unwittingly. Their parents see what they're doing and go, "Hey, oh, that gives me an idea."
right.
So it's amazing how that works. I do want to give a quick reminder. Any of you guys who are watching, if you're enjoying the content, please like, share, and subscribe, and help us promote our content. We really appreciate it. So after Kriegspiel, or after he Von Reiswitz does Kriegspiel, it ends up getting spread through the rest of the military.
Well, it does make its way through the Prussian military, yes, and then some years later into other militaries as well. So uh, when you watch the migration of Kriegspiel and the evolution of it, you can really see it as the main root, in the family tree, or however you want to put it. It really does all stem from Kriegspiel, and concurrent with, I'll give you a couple of other examples as to why. Um, it used an umpire, like a DM. It had a map that was not divulged to the team at first. You had, or playing field, or how you put it. They use miniatures, so the miniature field kind of evolved like a when you play a RTS game and it reveals more of the map as you move. They did a little bit
Okay.
of that in Kriegspiel, but anyway, the point is, like I said, all the pieces were there. Um, Really, the only difference is uh, that they're soldiers and not people trying to find a cache of gold under the belly of a dragon. Otherwise, all the concepts are about the same. And you are playing a role in Kriegspiel. It was cadets assuming the role of the kind of commanders that they were aspiring or being educated to be, but were not yet. They weren't generals running troops around, so they were assuming the role of those and playing from the perspective of being a general on the field, not cadet, you know, Fritzy that just got out of high school or whatever it was. So you were taking a role, just like in role playing. So those were kind of the common things. Um,
How did they resolve like outcomes for the did they have like a dice system or how
sure,
was that?
they had two. There was different iterations, and one used like a custom dice set, and you would roll a particular dice given the situation. There was a little like a visual aid to show you, pick you, show which one you need to pick, and then it had some fairly detailed results on it. It wasn't like a couple of pips. It had numbers and symbols that all meant something, and it was somewhat clever. And people have talked about doing this, but um, it's difficult to implement because even as a youngster, trying to read that kind of detail off the face of a die requires concentration and usually, for a lot of these guys, a little bit of magnification. So
Right.
I remember even as a 14-year-old trying to read 5/8 inch uh, war game counters, and they were so small and you had to bend over to do it. It actually, you'd start to get sore. So they went
Well,
to
we have digital tools now. We don't
right
have
now
to
they
rely on that kind of stuff. I mean,
old fogey
we could
stuff.
probably
Right.
do something similar to what Kriegspiel was doing without all of the handicaps of trying to read on a small die or the technology is handy for that. But
Well, anyway,
was there anything that it had that we don't use anymore?
it what it did was no, it doesn't. But it switched to
Okay.
uh, a it had instead of is just charts, the very
Uh
kind
huh.
of charts you find in any other role playing game. So
Okay.
you would reference the charts to determine how much damage was done, stuff like that. So when you got the system that had the rule book for the charts, again, there everything being there, ruler, um, miniatures, dice, adaptable terrain. It had little square terrain that could be arranged in different ways. Like
So
it
you
looked
could
like,
have different rivers or a town
sure,
could be
it
moved or
looked like it
so
was
different
made
game every time, right?
by the yeah, right, and all the terrain creation was the relatively similar as far as how they created the terrain. Seriously, it looks like something that you'd see at a hobby shop today. There really is no difference to it at all. So no, there's nothing that they didn't. Well, it's, I guess the only thing is then, as far as things they don't use anymore, is some people got conned out of the idea of using um, uh, a referee for a war game. And
Yeah, I thought that's the one thing that stood out to me that was maybe
yeah,
unique when you said
right,
umpire. So it's like a referee or like a GM,
exactly,
honestly,
exactly. And
which
the reason,
we'd still do for the RPGs, but not. I mean, they could be
yeah,
used. You could bring that back for
well,
wargaming.
well, here it's just with war, and I don't want to get too much on a soapbox, but the thing is that the
Okay.
people on wargaming have spent so much time, just like all these games, talking about what's too complicated, what takes too long, what's too. So all of that has caused games to be gutted as far as any of those interesting features. Just talking about that today with a friend of mine. Um,
Ah.
and if and there, as you said earlier, and then I will digress after making this point, but as you said earlier, we do have technology that's not 1978, and some of the things that were hard to do are a lot easier to do now, and if you use them,
Right.
it becomes much a much richer experience. You'll never play a war game right unless you play it within the referee, and then it's a
Right.
totally different dimension. So that difference came from, again, the whole complexity thing, and these games take too long, they're too involved, and being a referee doesn't sound half as fun as being a player. That's true. So war games started to drop the idea of a referee and market towards the whole head-to-head thing, which came with a whole other ball of wax, which I won't get into because it's irrelevant to this. But that's really why you have the split between GM and no GM. And
Right.
it wasn't for a practical good game reason. It was for, we want to sell these things and make them sound appealing reason, so on and so forth. So um,
Right. Much easier to sell a game that only requires two players to play than
right.
if you have to have a third. That
If
makes
you have to,
sense.
especially have to go to third, who's going to him and haw and bitch because they don't get to have the fun. They're the one calling the balls and strikes while you're swinging the bat.
Now, you're not
It
limited
makes
though to,
sense.
yeah, but you're not limited to just three. I mean, you could have different generals on
Ah,
a
so
battle in a mass battle, right? And
exactly, and
then
that's the thing that people never, um, they never
because
get into.
that sounds like that would be cool,
And that's
actually.
what they did with Creekspeed. It absolutely was. And I played these games in the U.S. military, and I played them at Gen Con and all the place. They're great. The more people you get involved, the better. So, and I
Okay, now I've got and sorry, I don't mean to digress. I
hold
am
on.
taking us a bit off topic, but if you enjoy and you don't mind a question, how would you handle like getting orders to is that like part of the gameplay? Like you have to send a messenger. You can't just tap the guy on the shoulder next to you on your team and go, "Hey, I'm going to be coming around the left flank." You would have to play it out in role, right?
That's right. Normally, what was done um, when I played is, well, there's one of two things. There was informal at somebody's house type of thing, and that usually was, we're all going to go over here and stand in a circle, smoke cigarettes, and talk secret stuff, while the other guys are on the other side of the yard doing the same thing in their little like a football huddle, and that works fine. But you do have to stop the game to make those huddles. What we would do in a more formal, like a Gen Con or game convention type of thing, is either passing of notes, something like that. Now, um, whether you got the note at all, a lot of games would take that in consideration. They would consider the fact that um, a message transcript is going to be done by a courier on a horse, and there's all sorts of reasons why that might not get where it's supposed to go. So they would have, like we went back to, like Malkin, the random events table, randomly. Oh, the horse, blew a horseshoe. They got lost, sniped by the enemy. Some sort of you know bummer type of thing, or passed, no problem, whatever it is, arrived on time, things like that. So there was some um, drama as to whether they were going to get the orders in time to actually move to do something significant. It
And
added to the drama, but it was role playing. Yeah,
yeah, that's realistic too, as far as like, because things like that could happen. It could
yeah,
change the whole outcome of a battle if a message didn't arrive in time, and because of it,
exactly.
the troops weren't in the right place at the right
Yep.
moment. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's something I wish would come back. That's really cool. Um,
Here's the funny thing about about wargaming and that statement, and it's not that you're wrong or anything like that. It's But somebody made the same comment about some other thing that I just was talking about with them with wargaming, as far as, wonder why they never did this because it's such a good idea. And the same answer applied. So all I'm saying is, and I didn't mean to cut you so short and all that, but um, sorry, I'm a little bit chatty. I had some too much, I'm a little over caffeinated. Uh, but they probably already have done it, and there was probably all sorts of extenuating circumstances why you don't see it today, even though it was used in the past. So, and it just it's another point in my little line of explanation that ideas and design and construction and even how these games have played out over the developed over the years. It's not some linear thing of evolution.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, no, there's ebbs and flows, and evolution. People always think is like a progress forward kind of thing on these kinds of inventiveness, but sometimes we go backwards instead of forwards. Though not everything is something that's gonna
well,
be an improvement, but
there's so much. This is why when I brought up somewhat stumbling through it, I admit, but um, the idea that some of the people in between Malkin and the Kriegspiel were, there's so much of this stuff, even niche stuff. Give you an example real quick. There was a guy who attributed a particular concept to an individual who wrote about an article about it in a wargaming magazine. Now, because there's so much of this stuff, even back then, this was in the 70s, this man did not know that 15 years earlier somebody had already proposed this idea. And I'm not accusing anybody of plagiarism. It isn't some idea that you can plagiarize or anything like that. But he just thought, well, I heard about it first in this magazine, so that must be the first time it ever came to be. And that's not always the case. So,
right. So people have been reinventing the wheel. Speaking of the next wheel, because we've got a couple of other people to get to in this history. So after Kriegspiel, and this was not very much longer, but within the next decade, in the 1820s to 30s, you had the actual Paracosms created by the Bronte sisters, and their brother too was involved, right? Where they worked and created imaginative like worlds similar to the Thomas Malkin concept, but they came up with theirs independently. I'm assuming, right?
they did, yes. I just want to address we had a listener here, and I missed their statement, so I just want to read them off. Well,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Um, You're gonna have to help. How do you say
Oh,
that? G?
so JPG, first comment here is Kriegspiel was directly responsible for several Prussian victories as their
Yeah,
officer corps had learned to work together more efficiently and gamed out tactical solutions. That is good to know. I mean, these things weren't um, they weren't just playing, but anyway.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um,
oh, that's I like this comment. How nice of the fellow in the cow hat to help the big lizard with his dental hygiene. The picture there. So that's, yeah, he's getting his tartar cleaned off there. Um, and let's see. Oh, Sail Power by Sea Dog is actually a game he's calling out for being similar to Kriegspiel. Um, and it uses cards for procedurals for unexpected
God
events
rockets.
and
Okay,
treasure.
that's how you say it. I got you.
Got
Sorry.
rockets. Oh,
Okay,
okay. His last name. Thank you. JP got rockets. Okay,
that
great.
makes much sense. Yeah,
Thank
let's
you
go.
for your thank you for your comments and for watching. Do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, so we were moving ahead to the Bronte sisters. So what was it they created?
Well, it was. I don't want to sound like I'm being two faced because I understand that not while it's not completely linear, there is innovation and evolution stuff like that, and um, the Brontes they had multiple places. They didn't have just one world. They had a couple of worlds at least, um, and they did more in the way of geopolitics and conflict between nations in um, the world than Thomas previously had done. They were his was a nation in of itself, and the world itself was largely nothing but his nation. There
Uh huh.
was outside forces, but they were somewhat as I understand it, they were somewhat vague, and they're just those other people across the sea. Sometimes they come over and cause trouble. Whereas the Brontes, you could see what they had done is they had fictionalized what was going on around them, because they were the Napoleonic Wars were fresh in everybody's mind, and that whole conflict was going on at some points through some of the older daughters' formative years, and of course then the younger ones. You hear the stories, especially when they're fresh in everybody's mind. So it was very much Victorian Europe, fictionalized, where it's not. This isn't really Switzerland. It's some other name, but
It's
it's kind of like,
Schmitzerland.
yeah, right,
Right, yes.
shit like that.
We just
Far more
flipped the
creative
W
than that.
over to an M, and now it's a different country
Sure,
entirely.
right,
But
and
they have did they make representations of the people involved, like the political leaders of the day and that kind of stuff as well?
I don't know that they were trying to strive for emulating Napoleon or any of that sort of thing, but they were just they were really one of the first imagination type people. The imaginations, we've talked about that in other videos, and it's a concept that nobody's really been able to ever pin it down to any particular person or origin point, but it just kind of started to seep into wargaming in the 19th century a lot. You'll see references to it, and guys like um, Robert Louis Stevenson and H.G. Wells don't um, use the term imaginations, which I believe they know that that was coined later on. But the
Hmm.
concept imaginations, which is just nothing but a, a paracosm, making your own, just world building. Have a country with its own culture, its own language, its own symbolism and heritage and history, and um, a lot of times it was just a military campaign. What people, I don't really understand the thinking that much in my mind, but for a lot of people that were war gamers, they felt recreating what was happening around them recently, in some cases as it was going on, but fairly recently, was unseemly morally. So they would make these fictitious nations, and then somehow that was more morally acceptable
Well,
to
it's not
modern
any
warfare.
different than what Gene Roddenberry did with Star Trek. It was a
Hmm.
way to have social commentary without directly calling out any particular living person of the day, or yeah, to get the
Yeah.
just the message, the narrative across. But correct me if I'm wrong. One of the things that they did that was unique is they populated their imaginations. Right? They
Well,
had
Malkin had
characters
had
in them,
had
and
full NPCs. The
oh,
yeah,
okay.
oh
So
yeah,
they
he had
both
everything.
had non-player characters.
Right.
That's interesting.
The difference is they had multiple places, and those places had
Hmm.
different things. They also had, uh, like I said, a far deeper interaction. They were. Here's the funny thing. Now, and this isn't everybody, but apparently what they focused on a lot of was um, the kind of social interactions, both positive and negative, that came with war brides and things going on back at home when the men are off to the front.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
it was, and I'm doing this for brevity of description. Don't be too mad, but it was like they were writing chick flicks in a war setting,
Okay.
and that's what they were playing out inside their world,
Well,
which is great.
right. Yeah,
Fine,
no, that
whatever.
makes
But
sense that that's what they would play,
yeah,
but they did it they played like role playing. So they were LARPing basically.
they were really role playing. They had a full
Okay.
cast of characters and stuff like that. So yeah, they were really role playing it out. Now
But not the military side. Well, it says here they had like did they have military rules or was
they
it
had
just
no. We're not sure if they had any rules behind it, but we do know that they were considering conflict to some degree. They probably weren't out
okay.
there playing with toy soldiers, but they weren't. They were doing something with it that had it wasn't fully scripted. that's
Okay, so they did delve into the weightier matters of, survival
right, right,
and
right.
okay.
There was,
So after,
hmm,
oh, and I'm sorry if you wanted to go on.
I think there was a lot of people that would be surprised how often there would be some breakage of the male female. It wasn't. I don't want to get into anything, but I think
The
that those girls
stereotypes
like didn't
weren't
mind
a
playing
hundred.
with toy soldiers. They
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
care.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
right,
sure that was true. I was well aware of that even in my childhood, but
yeah,
kids aren't as strict about that kind of stuff as parents can be. So,
right,
and
yeah.
very often, many people have brothers and sisters and they end up with a play group that's mixed. It's not uncommon. So moving on though, we end up next our next iteration is now with Robert Louis Stevenson's, which I you shared this with me before the show and in prepping for this, and I was surprised to learn how involved he was in wargaming and that kind of stuff. He really was a busy man. I mean, he wrote a lot of books and um, you know, but also had time to do some wargaming stuff. Why don't you tell us a little about
Well,
that?
so here the interesting thing is I wasn't able to run every lead down for a complete citation about this, but I'm fairly confident that it is because I've read blogs. So, but because everybody's all you know iffy about information these days, I digress. I can't quote you chapter and verse on this, but I'm fairly confident that there was um, some correspondence with Blake and Robert Louis Stevenson. That it would have been minimal given the time thing, but there was, and that there's some influence that Blake got some influence from Thomas Malkin, and that Blake actually did a little bit of his own kind of role playing outside of the mind map world that he had come up with, and that Stevenson might have picked off of some of that too when he started playing. So he started playing about 1881, from what I've understood, and he was the one who. The thing about Stevenson was he was featured in several magazine articles where he spoke extensively about his wargaming along with everything else. He was an extremely well-traveled man for the time period. Boy, he got around, and one of the reasons he played such a long campaign, one of the most in one of the great magazine articles about this, they they chronicled his large campaign he played with his stepson in Davos, Switzerland, and he had plenty of time on his hands because he was convalescing from a bad some sort of virus that he had caught in a trip to Madagascar. So he got around. He was everywhere. Anyway, so he did write enough in these magazine articles that you can, and some other statements made in some of his writings, where you can get a pretty good um, rule set out of it. So I spent as much time as I didn't know about these magazines till about 6 months ago, and I got a hold of them and I read them and everything I could find. There was a guy who had put a blog and he goes, "This says," he had like an index of every time um, Stevenson mentioned wargaming, and then they had a very long interview with Osborne, the boy, the stepson that played with him, also, um, who obviously lived a little bit longer, and he had a lot to say about the wargaming. So I've got a set that I've made based on all of that, and
Really?
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So it's a good 95% is the stuff I got out of writings from him himself, and then anything that needed to be filled in from there, which was very little. I did with something that was along the lines of Featherstone or Grant, so it looks pretty good, and I've got that available. So let's see. Force on Force I'm familiar with. Not that I've played it, but I've been looking for somebody who would play it with me. I'd love to try that as well. Um, so yeah, uh, you know,
How did can you tell us a little bit about how his game played out? Like just some rudimentary details?
Stevenson.
Yeah. Well, the one he played with Osborne, they played the same by the same rule set, or
Oh, that one. So that one went on
yeah.
long enough. That went on about a year and a half. He had about 2 years convalescence, and that went on for about a year and a half. And it was um, extensive. And the magazine article that, or at least one of them that I read, was probably one of the better of them. The the author of the article went to Davos and hung out with uh, Lloyd, um, which is the son, if I remember the name right, and and Stevenson, and they gave him a command on the field, and he played 3 days worth of the game with them. So um, it was far more. I want to make it sound like it wasn't hard to learn or anything like that, but it was far more detailed than I think most people would assume something completely made up by them. They didn't buy anything and work off of it. This stuff came out of both their minds, and they would talk about how they would think about adding new things. Hey, this came up, and we're not really sure how to handle it, and how do we? They'd have just like they tell you to do in all the manuals, like D&D. Discuss it with each other and come up with something that makes sense within the spirit of the rules as they already exist. So he had created this book that looked like some. It There was a picture of it, and it looked like the little leather bound book that Indiana Jones carried around in the third movie, where he's checking on it. It had like notes coming out of it and stuff. It was totally ad hoc, but you could just see how they had, over the years, he had been playing with this kid for a while. This was just the biggest one. Over the years, they had just evolved something out of this. So it looked like it will play real fun. It's not complicated, but it does consider all sorts of things, including prisoners, and um, there is a very rudimentary logistics system that goes with it. Um, so there's all sorts of stuff. Now, another guy, let's make sure I'm going the right direction here. Okay, so we got a little bit further than that, but he's not in there. He'll come up later. Now, a guy that'll come up in the next episode is Tony Bath, and if you're a D&D person, then you probably know who Tony Bath is, or if you're a wargamer for that matter. But that Fletcher Pratt is what's coming up next. But funny you bring that up, because that's actually coming up next. So, but
so
yes,
what about
totally.
Fred Jane though? Wasn't he
Well,
next?
yes. Oh, yes. That's part of it too. But anyway,
Oh, okay.
Robert Louis Stevenson apparently influenced Bath quite a bit. So, but yeah, there was the ammunition, the supply trains. There was even talk about it. One thing that they had was um, a newspaper. So check this out. I'll just read this. There's a little excerpt that I came from. Yesterday, I came across a passage in which Bath is talking about the introduction of a campaign newspaper. This is something that they got from Robert Louis Stevenson as a way to keep players abreast of recent events. So he says, Bath goes on to say that Stevenson was probably the first to produce one of these in the campaign he waged. His was a very one-sided paper, which continually vilified his opponent, making light of his successes, emphasizing defeats, and criticizing his personal habits, etc. This annoyed the opponent chap so much that he made desperate efforts to capture the town in which the newspaper was situated. After which he hung the editor with great jubilation and took over the paper, which immediately changed its policy. So you can see by that little altercation, that little spot, that they had always mixed the role-playing element into these war games. Imagination, Tony Bass original thing, all this stuff of the past, including um, Kriegspiel. I think people have a view of Kriegspiel as being stuffy old krauts playing very stringent war games by the number. And while that isn't inaccurate for the majority of it, there were other exercises, things like the Peninsula Campaign, that was a far less conventional type of warfare, um, lent to people exploring um, scenarios with Kriegspiel and games like things that had Stevenson had come up with. They started using games like that to explore a more detailed, more civilian involved way of warfare that included a lot of role playing and the elements that a lot of people consider Braunstein today. So that's kind of the really interesting part there. Um,
Interesting. Um, so I have here in my notes, and I'm sorry, I keep referring to those, but so would you say though that it's still that Stevenson is the one who kind of bridged the gap between the like narrative type of approach that the Bronte sisters took and the Kriegspiel military type of campaign and
right,
kind of brought them together in the first kind of what we would consider a modern type of war game, I guess you would say in this case,
right,
or RPG. I mean,
right.
war
Um,
game themed RPG, I guess you would say.
right. There was no there wasn't procedures, rules, or notes that came with most of the Bronte sister stuff. You could see though that they had at least put some thought into who might win this battle. It wasn't just, well, I think those lads over there are strapping young boys and I like them, so they're going to win, or this is the way that it would work if we were telling the story. They wanted it to be something where they had to react to what was going on and write from those reactions. That's probably the part I didn't emphasize with them at first. I should have. So they were doing kind of a choose your own adventure thing. But Stevenson took, you know, like you say, the role playing where you had the funny little altercation that Bath just described, which is a very role playing thing to do, and on top of that had warfare that was run by, you know, certainly not advanced squad leader level intense rules, but things that covered. They said they were looking to cover everything they could. They were striving for the system to become more realistic and more in depth. Um, but yeah, they did include, you know, the great role playing with it, and that's the best thing is when you have something that puts it all together. You know, um, there's a big difference between laying something out like, say, Panzer Blitz, and that's simplistic enough a game. It's almost like just an enjoyably deep chess match for some folks, but for a lot of people, it just seems kind of boring. But if you LARP it up, if you do what we did, where we laid those maps out on different tables and made the table look, you know, we took the scenes from the 60s war movies where we were all part of the military. You know, we all had a job. One guy was the overall commander, one guy was infantry commander B, and and we would play from those with a little bit of role playing, a little bit of LARPing on it, you know, and make it very official, which helped speed play when you weren't afraid of taking or averted to taking notes and stuff like that. It helped, but we just made it seem like it was part of being in a command center, you know, that kind of thing. And adding that bit of role playing into it, and having some on the field of battle really makes the war game and the RPG seem like what's really the difference at this point. You know, we're just playing
Right.
in a world that's at war. So,
Hmm.
and it makes both much richer, in my opinion.
Right.
So,
I can definitely see that. So, the next one we have on our list after Stevenson, this is we're all the way. We're almost getting to the 1900s.
Mhm.
Well, actually, this did cross into the 1900s because it was Fred James' Naval War Game.
Right.
And that
And
was in 1898 was when it came out, and then it was revised and re-released in the early 1900s as well,
that's
1902
right.
and 1906. Yeah.
Yep. And this is one, and like the Fletcher Pratt rules that we'll jump into as a springboard. This had an interesting history. Fred Jane's stuff was intended to be a military tool and was sold as such to several countries at one point. It was used in a lot of defense um, exercises. It was also used in uh, some collegiate level stuff. I seen I seen photographs of that, but people were playing this for fun, like Kriegspiel. We did a history of Kriegspiel with a little bit more detail. And one of the things that happens with Kriegspiel after some decades is you start to see people playing it in Great Britain and places in America later for fun. And Fred Jane's was another one where there was people going to parties and playing Fred Jane's uh, naval game on the parlor floor. So it shows that today I just saw NATO playing games that you buy off the shelf at uh, a normal friendly neighborhood gaming store. When I think of military simulations of the past, like my age, I think of Atlas and Proud Prophet and stuff like that. It wouldn't be anything that you would be able to purchase, look at, or even operate. Um, the and when NATO plays it, they play with different roles. They're all taking a position within. But to be frank, Proud Prophet had that, and that was in 1982, and that was in the Defense Department. I had an uncle that was involved in that exercise, and he played a position that was not his. Most did. So in that sense, you're taking on a role. So the lines blur a lot when you get to Fred Jane and Stevenson, for that matter. Um, and they remain such until we get into the modern day where nobody wants to be a referee.
Right. Well, and so Fred James, he focused on realism, right? That was his big thing, the
Yeah,
technical realism
right.
for which I would expect, considering that you were starting to get into like more mechanized, heavy kind of, armor and guns and that kind of thing, that he would have had a need for being more technical
Right. If you're not
to.
familiar with what Jane ended up, he's for those listening, Fred Jane's Military Encyclopedia was a high end, price wise, kind of boutique defense. Uh, they were a private company, but they'd sell you these encyclopedias. They were very very well done, as far as having like leather bound, raised lettering on the front of them, real high quality stuff, but being very accurate about the defense stuff, knowing tanks and stuff like that.
So, like the armor penetration values and all of those
Right. Yeah,
details
all
that
that
would be
technical stuff. Yeah.
needed for an accurate kind of war game
But by the
simulator.
80s, they had it on right, exactly, all the stuff that you would need to make a very accurate war game, and he was trying to sell to defense contractors and stuff like that too. Um, Not with much success that I recall, but some people used it. Um, but it did get used a lot. Fletcher Pratt's came out. This was for the First World War, but Fletcher's Pratt came out for the Second World War. But it was the same kind of thing. It was meant to train officers, for the Second World War, and then
But this,
years.
what we're talking about now with Fred Jane, his naval war game, that was published before even the 1900s. So
That's correct.
this was not World War One or two.
No, no,
He was
this was.
prior to all of that.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
He was. Yeah.
And then after him, we end up getting to my favorite, one of my favorites, H.G. Wells. I've always loved H.G. Wells, but he
Okay.
published. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just geeking out over H.G. Wells because I've just always thought he was great. He's one of the early sci-fi writers, Mary Shelley was the first, I think, and then he would be second on my list, but I don't know, maybe.
Right.
Anyway, he wrote Little Wars and published that in 1913. Now, that was kind of where there was actual mechanical action with it. So some of the resolutions were not based on dice, but on kind of simulations like mock trebuchets or things like that, right? Did I
There
get
was
that
some of
right?
that with Fred James. Some versions of Fred James, I
No,
believe,
no,
had
I was
that
talking
too.
about H.G. Wells
Yeah,
with
they
Little
both had
Wars.
that. They both had
Oh,
that.
they both did.
Fred,
Okay.
Fred, not all of them, but I think one of Fred James' versions had that too, or I believe that's true. Um, Fred James stuff went. Uh, the Naval War Game
Mm-hmm.
became published as a commercial product for entertainment in
Mm-hmm.
1912. People had already been
Okay.
using it as such, but it became an actual physical thing you could purchase in 1912. So then Wells comes out in 1913 um, with Little Wars, and yeah, it was evident that when you make the connection, when you look backwards, that Wells was influenced by Stevenson, and Stevenson was influenced by Malkin and possibly Blake, and according to what he has said himself, Stevenson was exposed to, or at least had Kriegspiel demonstrated to him. So, in fact, one of the people that he played with regularly was a British officer that pushed to have Kriegspiel put in the British Army years after Kriegspiel. So you start to see a web, you start to see a connection. You can start to draw this out as a kind of family tree where generation after generation clearly establishes a connection with the previous. Um, Even if it's not direct, they may have never met or anything like that, but you can certainly see how things have just evolved in a way through time. And that's not untrue of anything. That's very common. It's the way things work. But it's neat to see it all just kind of put out in a timeline like this.
Yeah, so every person involved nudged it in just a little bit different direction, and then all together through what everybody came up with. And we haven't gotten to some of the other players, which obviously we're not. This is episode one in this series. We're going to be continuing on and talking about what happened after H.G. Wells as well, and where it took it from there. But this was really kind of the start of where we start seeing it published and becoming a pastime that had staying power, and also a valid military use as well, of course. That's probably a big part of. Would you say that played a role? The more conflicts there were, which there were a lot during this time frame, um, that people were interested in playing out these kinds of things for very practical reasons as well.
Well, that's right, and that's the thing too that's interesting is these are games that come inspired by or evolved out of child's play. And there's this myth that if you're doing something for the military, it's going to be this ultra complicated sort of thing, and no, the Kriegspiel that you look at isn't very sophisticated. As far as games go, it's probably more than a lot of people because it's got you know some finicky math and stuff like that. Germans, but um, it doesn't have any more weight than any other miniature war game made in the 60s or 70s or something like that. Some people might look at those things and again think, well, they were just too clunky or hard to play or whatever. But they were still just toys that were being played by adults. And Kriegspiel isn't anything any different than that. They play the same, really. So uh, and when I did stuff, there was a, a system called Dunkampf, which was a tabletop training for the U.S. Army. And in the same way, it was something that was made same way like Ricewitz. Kind of interesting that these two guys made this up, kind of made it up. They really just developed an existing thing, and then um, I don't presented it, and it was accepted. They made a ton of copies and shipped them all around and stuff like that. So when you break down Dunkempf, it's they use the very same manufacturer and the very same scale that I was collecting as a kid prior to the army and playing with uh, uh, miniature games with. And the very miniature game, one of them that I tried to get people to play, very few would play this one because they thought it was too much because it covered everything, and that's why I wanted to play it. Um, that was came out of England. It was called Challenger 2.
Mm.
And a version of that game is all Dunkempf is. What they did is they took um, the material that the reference material that was used and replaced it with some new reference material to get different numbers and stuff like that in a lot of cases because um, there were certain parts that were classified and something like that. So like the thickness of certain armor and crap.
Well,
So that's
for
all they did is
obvious reason. That
for obvious
makes
reason.
sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the modification they did. But the point I'm trying to make is that other than that, what they were training us to do to fight real world, not the only training, but part of the training was the very same thing I had been doing for fun with, you know, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and talking shit with, you know, 15-year-old buddies and stuff like that in my basement playing, you know, Panzer Blitz with miniatures and stuff like that. So uh, there doesn't.
Back in the days when we did not know better than to do that as at that
Right. I
age.
mean, you know,
That
it's
is,
like a
we are not
78.
endorsing
Yeah.
any behaviors like
Right.
that.
Right. I'm
We
just
were
saying.
feral children, and look how we ended up. So
Right.
don't make the mistakes we did. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
but that's it.
What?
It's
You
just
don't want your channel taken down, do you?
well, that's a good point. But you know, just whatever. The point. I mean,
But
more
yeah,
so than the beer
and
and the
it is
cigarettes
true.
was.
Sorry, I'm a grandma. I have to say
Yeah.
that.
You know, we just so you don't really need. You know, the idea that being realistic requires extreme sophistication or whatever. It's or ultra complexity. It's not true. Um, there was a lot of realism thought through with what uh, Stevenson and that was doing, but there was still a lot of imagination and role playing elements in it. They wanted to they were they loved it, and they were hungry for more, so they would refine the rules and add to them and stuff like that. But once you read them, you know it's not NASA level concepts. It's just all little things stacked together to make one set. It's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So, yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. So to sum up, basically what we found is that the modern war games and modern role playing games really kind of go back to, we can thank Kriegspiel for the rules, the kind of fleshing out the more practical side of the rules to determine who beats who in the actual battle, and then the Bronte sisters for the imagination and the rich realm of kind of like the non-player characters, emphasis on character development and character interaction and role playing itself. Stevenson kind of brought in the whole campaign thing, so where you have an ongoing,
Hmm.
it's a full-fledged purpose to the game where you're playing out a scenario that has a beginning, middle, and end, and then the simulation aspect. So the technical side of things, making sure that you're accurately representing the capabilities of the weapons and the troops involved, that kind of thing. And then Wells made it kind of accessible to people
Well,
because of the
here's
mass
the thing:
market.
if
Sorry.
you take what Stevenson did rules wise and butt it up against to H.G. Wells and Little Wars,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of technical detail in the thing, and I think that uh, how do you put this? I think that Stevenson did a lot to to um, bring people into the know about wargaming. Now, uh, one other thing is all through this time we're talking about, well, not all through, but once you get into the 1870s, the Franco-Prussian War and stuff like that, um, Kriegspiel had migrated to Great Britain and was
Hmm.
starting to show up in discussions with the Americans. The British had wargaming clubs very early, before the First World War. Several of them were 19th century stuff, and they were playing these games, but it was the same deal where it was people that would meet in a private area. It was meant to be private. It was meant to be insular. It wasn't meant to be shared elsewhere, but would share ideas and stuff like that. Now, they might take that idea some other day and just kind of drop it or use it subconsciously. But usually, those kinds of clubs were, I don't want to say like they were, just that private gentleman's club vibe behind closed doors, small amounts of people.
Well, there was it was a society. The times were one where there were elite social classes and those who were maybe not so much elite, but not, you know, I mean, that was different times when it comes to that, but
Yep.
it was still accessible and made. I think what I was saying about Wells is how he, because of the name recognition that he had and the writing of Little Wars, and what, wasn't there another one that he wrote, another book besides Little Wars? Um, didn't I get you a copy of that? Did you happen to read it? Do you have it handy?
I do have the copy handy, and you sent me a copy of Little Wars, but he
Yeah.
also had one called Floor Games.
Yeah, that's what it was. Floor Games was the other one. Oh, it's not really. Yeah, it doesn't want to show up because of your background. You'd have to turn your background off,
Hmm.
and then we could maybe see the copy of the book. But yeah. So, oh, there you go. That's better, right in front of your face there, like that. So you can see. Have you had a chance to read any of it? And
Sure.
is it a good read?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Uh, it's handy to have a copy of it. I appreciate it. But yeah, I've read through it all. I think that Wells, there's a couple things. Yeah, you're not wrong. He had a big influence. I think that, how do I put this? It's not really a debate thing, but I think that Stevenson had an impact too. I think the difference was a couple of things. By the time you get to 1913, there's things being cranked out pretty damn fast.
Right.
You know, you probably have better circulation than you would uh, um, back when Stevenson was around. So he
Right.
was very famous. He was very popular, and some of the magazine articles that were done by him, like one was in conjunction with covering um, the Spanish American War.
Right.
So that long ago, and that turn of the century can make a big difference. So I think that Wells probably uh, has production capacity behind some of his
Well, yeah,
influence.
but Stevenson, not that I don't think that Stevenson didn't promote it, but he ended up his literary works, I think, overshadowed some of his success with that, with the, because I think he's most commonly remembered for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and you know the some of the other books that he wrote, Treasure Island, that kind of thing. So what?
I'm listening to you, but I'm also reading our guest here. It says, "When I was a kid, I thought that all war games came from the UK. It somehow felt intrinsically British." That's that's awesome because I totally know what you mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, and that's Hollywood did that to us. If they want someone to be foreign for an American audience, they got a British accent or
yeah.
Scottish. If
Oh
they want to
God.
be really foreign, they'll be Irish accent.
Right.
Something like that.
Oh
Anyway,
God.
but yeah, so I think Wells kind of I don't know. It's kind of like you said. It's not a competition. It's kind of more like passing the baton. Each one passed the baton down to the next one. And it just they inherited the success, and each one took it in a slightly
Well, and the
different
other thing
direction.
is that for whatever reason, because it's a newer one, or did have more impact, they keep making Little Wars.
Yeah.
They're not remaking the 1892 uh, magazine that had the stuff from Robert Louis Stevenson in it. So
Right.
it's staying in front of eyes, whereas a lot of his stuff then isn't. So it's not as well known. Yeah, it's one of these things. Just like D&D, we talked about this that um, pop culture can really take you a lot of places. When Warehouse 13 put that lady on as H.G. Wells and stuff like that, he gets brought up enough that he's kept in front of young eyes and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
I
uh,
did like that actress that played on Warehouse 13 as H.G. Wells. That was
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
And of course, that's not H.G. Wells was in fact a guy in real life, but
mm-mm,
it was still that actress. I just like her. She was in Dexter too. She played the crazy
hmm
one from Dexter.
yep.
Anyway, side note, sorry about that, folks. Distractions. I sometimes have trouble staying on topic. But this has been really interesting, and we're not done all the way with all of the history of wargaming. We're going to keep going with it for episode 2. We'll get into some of the ways that the early wargaming and RPGs evolved through hobby clubs in colleges and that kind of environment and took the next leaps forward. So that should be interesting. In the meanwhile, if anybody is watching right now, and it does look like we have some viewers, if you want to ask any questions or um, make any comments here to bring anything else up, or we are listening and reading the comments. So um, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the show that we didn't cover?
Uh, like I say, it's 3 part. There's going to be a 6 part on uh, more a wargaming focused one about histories of wargaming. But there's a lot of crossover, so RPG people might like that too. Um,
Right.
the next episode, like she says, we're going to talk about clubs, campaigns, the old school, and we're also going to do a lot of talking about war games going to war. Um, Obviously, both world wars fall in between our 1900s and 1950 talk here, so we're going to have a little discussion about that. Um, but this will kind of circle its way back to coin a phrase to where about where D&D started. That's kind of the destination here, just kind of covering up to that point. Um,
And please, if you're interested in us covering anything specific in that history, let us know. Post a comment. We'll, in between now and next week when we do this again, which I think this time works pretty good. 9 p.m.
Folks,
Central Standard Time.
here,
Sorry.
here's the thing. This is why you haven't heard from us, and I say yes, it does, but with a giant caveat because I've got a father that's in the hospital with a cancer thing, and it what
Right.
what can you do? They say oh, the only way you can be successful is to be you know you have to be at the same time every week all the time. Like, yeah, life ain't like that, so it's been real tough. So yes, I would like to do the next one, same bad time, same bad channel, and pray for my dad that I'm there, because if I'm not, it's because it's gone south in his situation. So that's the best I can do. I want to be
Well,
honest
honey.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely it's a difficult time and I understand. So obviously I'm sure the audience and listeners here would also understand as well. So
Yeah, I hope that
um
people go, well, no, you probably won't do it because because I plan to, but I don't like to,
right. So we're committed to doing it
stand you up either. So
unless less things unexpected occur.
yeah,
So we will make sure to take a look before then. And if nothing else, I might pop in and just make sure and give everybody an update at that time, so you can check here anyway. At least that way you'll see me, and I'll be able to let you know what's going on for anyone's who's you know, wanting to know. So, what, but we'll try to answer any questions that we get or any comments. If there's anything that you would like us to do in a future episodes, let us know that as well. And if you have anything that you'd like to share with our audience as well, like if you've got some crafts or some things that you're proud of that you've done, we want to be a showcase for people to share what they love about gaming too. So submissions are welcome, and we'll take the best of the things we get and put them up on the channel too for everyone to see. And hopefully, we can build a place where we can all kind of share and relate about all kinds of gaming. Um, from the little wars to the the big monster campaigns and year long D&D worlds that you explore. um, we want to get into all those topics here and be a one-stop shop for everybody to connect. So, Storm,
wouldn't mind playing some games. Anybody ever
yeah,
think
that's
about playing? That'd be great.
that would be good as well. If anyone's got any interest in that, let us know. You
There is
can
one that you should know about and see if we can work something out. I haven't gotten back to it. Dave that
Dave.
Dave that played in our
Oh, that's right. He was going to do a pirate game, right?
yeah, he was talking about pirate game, and then he brought out Starship Troopers by Avalon Hill, which is an old classic
Oh,
from the
okay.
70s. And he wanted to play that. And he said, DM me and hook me up so I can set it up. We'll play. And I haven't been able to get back to him yet. And even though here's the thing, I I still do the Twitter thing because you can do the Twitter thing anywhere. And so you might see me on Twitter. And but some of the other things has been hard to do. So, but anyway, yeah, Dave, I'll get back to you if you're listening, and we'll see if we can set something up. And
Yeah,
it would be on Tabletop Simulator or maybe Vassal, preferably Tabletop Simulator if the module still works. Oh, by the way, I didn't even get a chance to tell you this. I'll just tell you live. Why not?
why
Um,
not? Go
why
for it.
not? There's a update coming for Tabletop Simulator, so maybe some of those issues will be ironed out.
That would be
It'll be
nice because
nice. Yeah.
I like the 3D nature of it. I like the configurable, the way it can be anything that you want, and that people can be creative with it. But yeah, I would like to see some of the
Sometimes.
stuff get to where it's more reliable.
Yeah. Um, but I think we can give this a try. So that's one game we can play. But anyway, sure like to play some others.
Yeah,
Star
I know
Trek.
you want
Anybody?
to play Star Wars,
Star Wars, Star Trek.
big campaign, Star Wars or
Oh,
Star
mommy, make me.
Trek.
I want to play. I've got Star Trek. It's not as bad as or big as. Oh, bad. Gee, I screwed myself up. They're both very good. I've got a lot of Star Wars. In fact, I've got five Star Wars. Choose any one, but choose Ash Worlds first, and then
Choose Ash Worlds first, yes. Well, you do want to get enough players to get one going rather than one player in each one, don't you?
well, maybe. Um,
Maybe. Okay.
I'll play them all, man. I just want to
You'll
play.
play them all. Okay. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
but yeah, those are so anything. Uh, Here's another thing that we, in the world of stuff we said we were going to do and then haven't been able to do. Um, there was a board game that we needed to play that I really wanted to show people to play.
What board game?
Um, it's about Lord of the Rings.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
This is going to be, you're going to get to see me be surprised online live. So,
yeah. So this is called War of the Ring, and this was
War of the
released.
Ring. Okay.
Yes, and this was released in 1977.
Wow. Okay. That's an old one.
Right. Yeah. And so it is an interesting experience. It, it's how do you put it?
It's indescribably good. Is that what you're trying to say?
It's not how you it's like that uh, Shay Geek.
Okay.
You can't like play it a lot. It doesn't have a lot of variance in that. It's fun to play out once in a while, and it's a neat spectacle, and that's why I want to do it. It's not bad, but there's just a couple places where they could have made more dynamics so that it wasn't so um, prevalent to go one or particular way or anything like that. So I don't want to make it sound bad. Um, it's not. It's fun, but uh, anyway, so it's pretty cool, and it's about the. It's just the movie. So
Cool.
you're. Oh, do you want to hear what it? Okay. It it's made by SPI. So um,
SPI. Okay.
yeah, which is a war game company that a lot of people tend to think is like more on the hardcore side, but they made a lot of stuff like this that is far from hardcore. This is not a complex game or anything like that. On a large map, Middle Earth, armies are mustering and heroes are readying to fight the shadow spreading out of Mordor. The game is played
Mm.
on 2 levels, both sides, or 3 if you want to have someone play Saruman. Have great armies that battle in typical wargame style with another game is going on at the same time with individual characters around the fate um, of the One Ring.
Oh, so you get to play the hobbits and Gandalf and all of that, the small party of adventurers at the same time that you're doing the war game stuff. That
Indeed.
sounds really cool.
Yeah. And
I
that's
would
why,
play that. That would be
yeah,
fun to play.
right, right. So the point is that what we're along with interesting history and just looking at this old stuff. Um, there's a lot of people that say uh, you can't put the two together. So War of the Ring puts the two together. It's kind of the great ending to the thing we're doing because it shows how they coalesce, they coexist, or whatever you want to say. Go
Right.
ahead.
It's how you can play on
I
the.
think.
I love games that do that. There was that Joan of Arc game that I played, and this was a computer game, but it was Mountain Blade made it, I think, and it was you could play as Joan of Arc, so you played as the character RPG style with her as your character. But then once you would get into a battle, there would be like her generals and stuff that her comrades in the battlefront, and you could play as them. Um, either as a strategic top view where you were commanding your troops to do maneuvers, but then after you gave those orders you could like go into first person mode and play that
Right,
knight with your sword, and you could get down there and like try and actually get on the map and hit,
right.
combat first person
Yep,
style. It was
yep.
cool.
hmm Yeah, that's the way I like to play a lot of these kinds of games and board games. We used to do it with too, but yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
I'm
idea.
I'm surprised more games don't do that because it was a really, and whoever made that particular Joan of Arc game, and I know it probably wasn't a very popular game because I bought it at one of those half price book places, so it was a discounted one. It was brand new, but it obviously didn't sell when it was out originally. Um, but I thought it was one of the best RPG games I ever played because it did that both it scratched both of your itches, you know,
Yeah,
when you wanted to play hand to hand combat or you wanted to play strategic overview. Or even actually all three, because you were role playing as Joan of Arc too. You had to like go on. There were little touches of her journey. You know how she was hearing, um, the voice of God to go into the battle and stuff. So you played role played some of that with her too.
right.
It didn't go all the way to the end though with her, which is good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
There's
you don't you don't want to play that part out.
hmm hmm Yeah, there was a lot of games I played like that. There was war games and stuff like that. In fact, I've got one on Steam. I don't. It's an old one, but that uh, was fun. You, same kind of deal.
Hmm.
You gave whole units orders, and then when the orders were done, you did the same thing. You could just take over one of the tanks or something and fight from that position and all that. Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
very cool.
but yeah, and that's the. I mean, that War of the Ring. That's the same thing that the Ash Worlds that we do is. You've got on. You've got the you know characters that want to play like you know demolitions people or something like that. Oh, hello, Janet. Um, but
Hi,
the
Janet
people
from another planet. I love your name. Very cool.
it. But yeah, if you want to play the kind of the behind the scenes commando guy, you can play at that level. But if you want to play, naval commander in charge of star destroyers and all that, you can play it for. It's either way is a role. It's just a different way of you know
Right, you could
moving
have the
units around.
role of a commander, or you could just be a small group of misfits trying to make a difference in the larger battle. I
Right.
like both roles actually, but
Mhm.
for the rebels, to be fair, the small band of misfits is the usual for them.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, so you kind of locked into that anyway if you're picking the rebels.
I
And
see.
really, to be fair, the probably the smugglers too. They
Right.
were isolated as well, I think, unless you were part of the Hut consortium.
Right. But
Were they a consortium?
I guess you could call
Conglomerate?
them that.
I
Sure.
don't know.
Corporation. But the the best way to play something like that is with more, like you said earlier, more people. That's the other
Right.
element that seemed to be stripped away as the time went on, like we're talking about. And that
Hmm.
happened on both sides, both wargaming now and RPG people. Well, you can only handle 3 to 5 people or something like that. We used to play with 15 people. We played D&D.
Yeah.
We literally would get on the BM. I mean, I know there's all this Gen X stuff and all that. It's true, but we'd get on the bike and we would just,
Hmm.
hey, you know, and see how many we get. Sometimes we get as many as 15. It worked out
Wow.
okay. And, people say, well, you can't have that to be yelling over. Yeah, you had the spaz that was always yelling and stuff like that, but you made it work. And that kind of multiplayer fun has just kind of been stomped out as being untenable or whatever. But they were doing that sort of stuff in the history that we're talking about. These games weren't played between two or the only reason you were seeing two people with Stevenson in Davos is he was sick. He was
Yeah.
convalescing. So um, usually these were played in halls with a grand party of people.
Yeah.
And you all right there?
Yeah. I'm okay.
In there, I hear you coughing or something. But yeah,
Oh,
so
sorry.
the multiplayer really adds a social element to it and changes the face of gameplay. It makes it more interesting. So, but you play something like Ash Worlds, you're going to want more people so that you can, it's easy to do. You had we were on a live earlier on TikTok where the lady was talking about having large groups of people play in the same world, and they were just going to rotate people through. And I thought, why? If you've got plenty of time, why not set this thing up so that everybody can play concurrently?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that was her time limit, but yeah, it depends, if you've
Oh,
got the capability to do that. But yeah, that's exciting. I like that when there's a lot of people involved.
yeah. Yeah, those were the best games. Was playing that, and that's
Hmm.
the way a lot of these guys used to play. Sure, you'll hear something, you'll listen to somebody like Tony Bath talk about that time he played the campaign with his one pal in his basement over the period of a summer or something like that. Sometimes you can't get players. Sometimes you can't. Be lucky that you can, because there's a lot of people that can't. But that
Right.
doesn't your lack of access to enough players is unfortunate, but it doesn't invalidate the idea that playing with large groups of people is enjoyable and easily facilitated, contrary to popular belief.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, and I just want to put it out there too. When I invited people earlier to make comments on the live, feel free to make comments if there's a game genre that you're looking for players that you want to let people know that you like this particular game. We want to make this a space where everybody is kind of welcome to share whatever their favorite gaming experiences are, or bring a friend. If you want to do that kind of thing. I think that's one of the things that makes it kind of hard for people, I think, to connect in these is that, um, there's probably a lot more people who want to play these types of games. If you like the type of content that we're doing with that, and the types of games that we talk about regularly, you know, post some information here, show some interest, join our Discord, and we'll get some games going that we can facilitate, gameplay. Storm is a DM. I am not to that level. I like to play. I like to talk about it, and it's a special interest of mine. But he's definitely got experience as a DM. So if you're interested in something like that, just post a comment. We'll see what we can do. If it's a game Storm is familiar with, maybe we'll get one together and work out a time for
I
everybody.
probably
So
already have something set up for it with a lot of them. You want a
yeah,
whole
there
list?
may be. So, don't be shy if you want to inquire about that. We can, reach out to you, respond back, and get you the information.
Boot Hill,
Boot Hill,
got one
okay.
for Boot Hill. That's for Western.
The cowboy western one. Is that what that
Yep,
is?
yep.
Okay.
Um,
I
one
don't
for
know, man. I'd have to be like a Annie Oakley type if I played that, wouldn't I?
hmm yeah.
Mm. I am a damn good shot.
There you go. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's one for that, and I've got two for Gamma World, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic type of setting. And let's see what else. Oh, the Star Wars, like we said, there's several of those, 4 or 5. Star
Mm-hmm.
Trek, fastest Star. Oh, the Star Wars, by the way, is D6. I don't play stuff that's new. I only play stuff from Gen X. So
Well, you can play some new stuff too if you want,
I
but
don't
your
own any of it. But
specialty is yeah,
well, the thing is
specializing
like,
in the older stuff.
well, I own it already,
Yeah,
so I don't
there
have to
you
spend any money, and I know it already because I already own it, so I don't have to learn anything new. So
right.
it just
Makes
is
sense.
easier to stick with what you got than have to reinvest. I don't. If I
Right.
had the kind of cash flow where this would shelf would be real, if I could. But Daddy
Mm.
he need a new pair of shoes. So anyway,
Right, right.
um, so I got that. Let's see. World War II. I got a bunch for World War II stuff. I It's unfortunate a lot of people don't feel that military RPG role play is. I love it, but whatever. So I got that. Oh yeah, I got the OD. Well, it doesn't have to be ODD. I got D&D, but it won't be 5e. I can do BECME, I can do first edition, and I can do original D&D. I mean, I could do BX. I've got it somewhere, but um, again, if it's not 1980s, it's crap. And just kidding. But um,
You're not really kidding.
uh, no, there's been some stuff that was. I shouldn't say it about everything, but it's just kind of.
Right.
I don't. I had money then. I don't now.
Right.
That's all there is to it. 1987, I was making good money. I'm no longer
Right.
doing that. But uh, but yeah, I've got a lot of that kind of stuff. Let's see. World War One pilot, Dawn Patrol, all that sort of stuff.
Oh,
I don't know if
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I gotta. So uh, I'm probably forgetting one.
Yeah.
I know I am, and I'm still forgetting it because it's not coming to mind. But there's another one too.
Oh, it'll come to mind as soon as you're not thinking about it.
Right.
That's how that always works.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's like, oh, well, now that you don't need it, here's that information you were looking for. I don't know why my brain does that to me too.
Yep. Whatever. I can't. It's not coming. So, but there's also domain games, hex crawls, dungeon crawls. We can always do those too.
Yeah, those are nice. Sometimes, you really just need like a quick skirmish or something for just to, if you want to see how you enjoy a game, that can be a good way to get into it. I took my grandkids to do that on my grandson Nathaniel. He's a little bitty one, but he's old enough now. He's like just turned 6. So we went to the game store and he had his very first gaming experience. It was really cool. It was just a little skirmish. And he was a part of a team on, there were 4 of us playing, and he was on a boat and headed off to on a mission for the king. And on our way, these mer people jumped on board the ship, demanding that he pay a ransom to get past it. They were sea trolls, is what they were. They looked like mermaids, but they were trolls because they wanted money for us to pass through their section of sea. And so the decision was made to take them out, and it was a nice little skirmish battle. So he enjoyed that. It was neat to watch him, get into the role playing aspect of it too, because we made sure, it's like, okay, you got to speak like your character. What are you going to do?
Right.
And he was so excited. He took it so serious. So, if you guys out there, if you have kids, I really encourage you to get them into some kind of role playing. It's good for them. I think a lot of what our kids do is technology driven, and even if you're using technology for this, ultimately role playing games are about person to person connection. Those are the kind of skills that people need now, and some of our kids haven't had a chance to get, especially if they were on lockdown for a year of their development. This generation's going through that, so remember that for your young people and try and encourage them to do that stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm going to stop being a grandma now and go back to normal person mode, but
So
anyway, it's
another.
fun too. It's cool to watch your kids get into your grandkids, kids get into those kind of things because they're naturals at it too. They're not shy about it.
I have another thing that I would love to see you participate in,
Okay, what's that?
and it actually will actually be a, a dungeon crawl.
Oh,
But
a dungeon crawl. Okay, as long as I don't have to actually crawl because my knees aren't up to
but
that.
you might have to control more than one character.
Okay.
Can you do
Ooh,
that?
I don't know. How complicated are these characters? Easy to control, or am I going to have
Well,
to crack the whip on them?
well, it's like a D&D thing, but a little
Okay.
different. Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it.
Oh, well, just I just want you to play a small dungeon crawl,
Oh,
and
well, maybe we'll do that on another episode. So we can do that after the next
I
episode.
want
It
you to
could be
use
at the
I
end
want you
of
to
the
use I
huh?
want you to play using chainmail.
Chainmail.
Yeah,
Okay.
the war game.
Okay. Well, we could do that.
Really?
Yeah. What
Okay.
why do you sound so skeptical? I'm not sure. What am I getting myself into? Like,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
do you really want me to play? Yeah, I want you to play game. Chainmail.
Well, the
Oh, you
reason
will? Really?
really wasn't
Really?
expecting
Are
it
you
yet.
sure?
I really wasn't sure. The reason I'm laughing so hard about this is, um, you don't see, like, there's been a big hullabaloo about that. That's why I want to do it. So
Okay.
yeah.
What's the hullabaloo? Like if is it what um I feel like I'm being tricked. What's going on here?
Okay, so what's going on is those guys that I always tell you about,
Uh-huh.
those broser dudes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so their latest little spiel is, oh yeah, you're supposed to use chainmail, which is a war game that was created, um, well, late '60s, early '70s ish. Um,
Yeah, wasn't it supposed to be used as a part of the early Dungeons and Dragons?
oh, she knows. Yeah,
Yes, I do. Yes.
right.
Okay.
Okay, so so the
So
argument,
why do I feel nervous about it now?
well, so what they do is they say you're supposed to use that. It says right there in the book, in the beginning of the original D&D, you might it says something like something about having it with.
Mhm. I do
And
remember reading that. Yeah.
okay, so there, that's even more funny that you know. Okay, so they're saying this, and then Rob Kuntz, he says, "Well, we never played like that. Never once did it come up in play testing or anything like that, and it has no bearing on the origin of D&D at all. And people who associate with the origin are, they're getting it wrong, and they're revisionists, and they're stupid." So
Okay.
and the, so anyway, it's just been a big
This
deal. So it's not
this
really a
sounds like a
big deal,
family
but it's
feud.
funny.
Am I walking into a family feud here? If I play this chainmail, am I gonna like be hoisted on my own petard? What's going on here? It's-
At this point, just the reference and the playing of it would be amusing to people, because it's just,
okay.
yeah, it's kind of a
Why are people afraid of it?
no, it's just kind of a cheap stunt to play off of, of a controversy. Basically, I like to play
Uh,
it. I've played it before. I always wanted to see you play a fantasy war game, anyway. So I just thought this would be a good thing, but it's a joke because
can
it's
can I command the goblins?
okay.
I'm discovering that goblins are kind of cool. I
See,
mean,
you're gonna be one of those
they're like,
people.
huh?
You're
What?
gonna be one of them people. You're gonna be one of them players. You're
What do
coming
you
so
mean?
far. Well, because you're coming from the left, so you're gonna make everybody that's like a bad guy isn't really that bad, right?
What?
Yeah, there's a whole thing about that. All the
Oh,
cops are criminals, and all the sinners are saints. Goblins are Orkine, and Orkine are bad. Okay,
what?
they're bad. Okay, they're not cute. They're mean
No,
little.
no, no. You know what? I don't think they're cute.
No good.
No,
Because there's a lot of people thinking they're cute these days.
they're like gremlins.
Right, they're abominations. Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Abominations. What
They
the hell?
in D&D are
No, they're
supposed
like,
to.
but the freedom. Come on. I haven't ever played a bad guy. Totally want to be I want to embrace my bad energy for a bit and just go all goblin on somebody. I don't know why. It feels like the right
Oh,
thing to do.
goblin, not medieval, just goblin.
I'm
Okay,
just gonna go goblin. Yeah. Why not?
okay, all right.
I ate after midnight.
Well, there you go. You
Yeah,
can play bad guys on the OD&D thing if you want to.
yeah.
That'd be fine.
You know the difference between a goblin and a gremlin?
What?
Paramount.
Uh,
And a mohawk.
so yeah, that was one. Was the chainmail, just because it'd be funny. So, but that's kind of timely. So we'd have to get you on the tabletop sooner than later on that.
Okay. That was a Paramount movie, right? I didn't make a bad reference to
I
that.
don't know if it was or not, but I assume so, and that's was the. I just assumed that's what the punchline meant.
Yes, that is what it meant.
I
But
am
I don't
aware
know
that
if it's
it's
right now.
Thanksgiving tomorrow.
What?
Are you aware it's Thanksgiving tomorrow?
Yeah, and I
I was
bought
recently
pizza
informed of
tonight.
this.
It's
Like I've only know.
ridiculous. I saw on the pizza app that their wings were half off because it's Wednesday wings. And so I was like, oh, I'll get the Wednesday wings. And then it's like, duh, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Now I got leftover chicken and pizza on top of going to have a ham for Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure. What I'm
You're gonna
thinking
eat a
of
hand?
doing,
Oh,
yeah,
ham. Oh,
ham.
I just said hand.
Turkey is, turkey's like, I don't know. Turkeys think they're better than chickens, but
Well, I
they're
just don't
not.
want to deal with it right now. Like this is not the
Yeah, I
time.
know, right?
So, so I guess that's going to affect the game thing and all that. But I wanted to play the game, and then I have to see what happens after the Wednesday because I got the thing.
Mm.
So, anybody want to talk? Because otherwise, it sound like we're having a personal conversation. Sorry.
It does sound like, but
Janet
I
was here.
hope
You know
I
who
do
Janet
want to
is?
wish. What
And then Janet was here. She plays D&D. She got a weekly thing she puts on her YouTube.
is she a
Tell us about
goblin
that.
though?
No, well, I don't know. I
She's
don't
not a
think
goblin.
so.
I'm
Yeah, she always does
disappointed.
her own show too.
She has her own D&D show.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. She's on. She's got a channel, YouTube channel. So yeah,
really? No
yeah.
kidding. Wasn't she the one that was in the kitchen on Thanksgiving, another Thanksgiving when we were playing Risk, the board war game, and your sister
No,
was like,
bro, Janet in the room here. Janet from another planet. You're
"Oh,
you're thinking
that
of my friend. My
Janet."
yeah, not my sister's
I
friend Janet.
thought you
That's it.
were talking about your sister's friend who was all like, Boomsy, why are they playing a game on Thanksgiving?
Hey,
And I was like, why are you sounding British? And who's Boomsy? And anyway, it was really, really weird. But so I thought you were saying she ran her own D&D channel. And
no,
that
oh
would have been
Janet.
really ironic.
Yeah,
But Janet from another planet.
yeah.
That's
No,
cool.
yeah. She's
Glad you
got her
have a
own show
channel.
on there.
I'm gonna have to check out her channel.
Yeah, they
That'd be
play
good.
every Sunday. I think it is. Isn't it Sunday?
Every Sunday?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I will follow that. And
Speaking of
yeah,
play,
Ella Stewart dropped us a follow. Thank you, Ella. I can see
thank
here.
you,
I
Ella.
think that we may have a delay on Twitch there, but thank you so much for the follow. And we are seeing your text. Yeah, anyway, I want to be a goblin in the next campaign. I'm just putting it out there. I've been playing a little Baldur's Gate 3, and I recently lost a very special goblin. She was first imprisoned. She had a really rough life, you know? I broke her out of her jail cell, tried to rescue her, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, her name was Saza. It was very sad what happened to her.
Oh, the Baldur's Gate thing.
Yeah, yeah. I feel
Yeah, I
bad
see
about
it.
it.
I get a bad. Oh, it's okay. We're just having a little. Ella is, I believe, in England. She, am I right? Aren't you in
Oh,
England? She plays on retro games on Twitch, and yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's so cool.
Usually a lot of RPGs, but just about anything. She's always got new games. You see a tweet from her. Hey, look at all the stuff I got, and a big list of games.
Oh,
So it's
awesome.
pretty cool.
That
Yeah.
is very
No.
cool.
Um. Well, right. Yeah, we play a lot of tabletop. This we were talking about some tabletop stuff before, but I used to play a lot of retro stuff. Unfortunately, my retro stuff is in storage. I can't get it out right now. I'm staying at a house taking care of an elderly family member, but I do have lots of old 8-bit stuff. I got a ColecoVision and a Magnavox Odyssey 2000, couple of 2600 decks,
Wow.
7800 deck. I thought I had a 5200. I don't know where that went. I'm kind of mad. I want to find that again. I don't remember. I might have sold it, but um,
Ah,
I certainly want that. So yeah. And I got Atari 2600 plus on my Christmas list.
really? The
Yeah,
2600
yeah,
plus?
they're remaking it. 2600 plus are remaking
Ah.
it. Yeah, well, one bad. That's on my Christmas list.
Oh, I play
Oh
Hogwarts
yeah,
Legacy, Ella. I love those kinds of. I haven't played Dreamlight Valley though, Disney Dreamlight Valley, although I've heard good things. But definitely the yeah, that's a life simulation game. Okay. That might be one I'd like to play. But yeah, Hogwarts is fun. Although there are some tough ones in there. I'm not quite fast enough. My reflexes are. Oh, we are I'm in Wisconsin. How about you, Ella? I hope everyone is going to be having a really good Thanksgiving. And that if you get a chance to play games, don't let anyone call you boomsy and tell you not to, okay? Just putting it out there. I still don't know what that means.
Um, you don't know what boomsy
Oh,
means?
Virginia. I was born in Virginia, Ella. So I'm like, in fact, well, born is, I don't know. My mom tells me I was hatched from a buzzard's egg she found on the beach. So I don't know if that's considered the same. That's what I get for asking where do babies come from, because that's what she told me. Oh, you were
Mm.
hatched from a buzzard's egg I found on the beach. What's your origin story?
Me?
You want to make your stream look more professional. That would probably be nice, actually. Is that a hint? It's like, well,
Yeah, I don't know how to make all that stuff. I tried to get some of that stuff to work on Twitter and excuse me, Twitch, and
hmm
I was like, I can't figure any of this stuff out. There's a bunch of things you can do with it to make it look better, but I don't know how to do it. So
yeah, you may want to ask Ella here.
yeah,
I I think it would be helpful to make it look more professional. I do like the dental action going on in the background here, though. That he's got some receding gum lines. It looks like the barbarian there got there just in time.
yeah, I probably should resize that so it looks a little better. Um,
Yeah, you could resize it. It's a matter of taking some time with it. And I think I might need to kind of spy on it from another account. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. It's I'm
yeah,
about to
that's what
turn
we
into a
need.
pumpkin. What's that?
We need people to, or I need to look at it from the way other people see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think well my mom has YouTube on her phone, so maybe she can do that. Attractive content. Okay.
Turn
Yeah,
off the
Ella,
camera.
that's a good idea. You might want to, since you got to follow from, let's see, some animations. Okay. Yeah, Storm, you should follow up with Ella on that.
Yes, I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, animations. I don't know how to make any of that shit. I got no money, but I can try to make. I don't know. Try to make something. Maybe you can draw. Or
I'm no good at drawing.
I seen you draw. It's pretty
You have,
good.
yeah, we do have Discord. Yeah, we've got Discord. You've got the Discord information though. Yeah, if you want to invite her to the Discord, Storm, go ahead and do that. You've got access to all that, but yeah, that might be. So we have been on since 9 Central Time. So it's now 11. I think we might be wrapping up pretty soon, but we've got quite a few, folks viewing right now. So if there was something you wanted to talk about, um,
It shouldn't take this long.
oh, it's you're not able to send it, or it's
There we go.
oh, okay. Be patient with us, Ella.
Hello, computer.
Oh my goodness. That's one of my favorite Star Treks. It's amazing when I look now and think like because Kirk is still, he's still alive and kicking, and but you look at almost the entire rest of the Enterprise staff. Who's left now? Sulu's still going. Walter Koenig.
Yeah, those are the three
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
Everybody else is
Wow.
gone. Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring the whole vibe down like that, but
Yeah.
those guys, they changed the world just with a TV show. It's amazing. Michelle Nichols and um, DeForest Kelly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he was fun to watch. Yeah, yeah. I think we covered everything and then some. Um,
I think we did. Yep. So yeah, anyone wanting to join the Discord that is in the chat, if you want to drop us a line and or join, definitely if you're interested in any of the games we talked about. And Ella, thank you for your kind offer as well, because we do want to make the live successful. So appreciate that. And I think we're going to call this a night, you guys. We've been on for about 2 hours. It's been a great show. Thank you all for participating. Oh, what's going on, Ella? It's not working. It's not working, dude.
oh, why not? What did I do
Okay.
wrong here? Invite to server. Oh, blind fast join. Oh,
Mhm. Give us a moment.
huh. Oh,
I'm sorry, you've got the sounds you're making are the ones my mom makes when I hand her the phone and go, "Hey, here's how you use TikTok, mom." Oh, and the head tilt is there too. she's she's gonna give you her Discord, and then you can. Okay, we'll send you a request, Ella. Thank you so much for your offer, and yeah, I think as you could probably tell, we need a little help. Oh goodness, this has been a really fun show, and I really do appreciate all of the. Oh yeah, if you want to send it to her right now, I'm gonna drop off and wish everyone a really good night. Are you gonna stay on for a little bit, Storm,
no, man, aren't you
picking
gonna
up
play a
us,
game
or
with me or something?
we may be able to do that. I have to take a quick break before we do that, but yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's do that.
All right. Thanks again, everybody who came and watched and participated. We're going to do this again next week at the same time, barring any unforeseen events. So we will see you at that time. It's going to be Wednesday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you guys have a really good evening.
Okay, Tony's here.
Oh, hey, Tony. Good to see you, man. Sorry, we're just wrapping it up, but we will catch you next time.
Yeah, I'll give you a text next time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You should do
This thing
that.
don't tell you when it turns on no more like it used to.
Right. All right, everybody. Good night. Happy Thanksgiving to all. And we'll see you again next week.